Hey, good morning, Ignite. How are we doing? Good. Awesome. I'm Mike. I'm one of the pastors here. And, last week we started off this series called #Struggle, where we're talking about following Jesus in the selfie-centered world that we lived in right now. And if you missed last week, some of the stuff that we had talked about was that comparison that we have. When we are comparing ourselves to other people, too often we become less content with our own lives. And so we're going to continue this series. Next week, we're actually going to talk about authenticity. And I'm really excited about this week, authenticity, because the reality is the more that we live in this social media world, the less of a reality that we're actually living in. We live our lives kind of filtered and behind a wall and deciding what we're going to say and what we're not going to say. And so what becomes our reality isn't really reality ourselves. So we're going to talk about that next week. But this week, we're going to talk about the intimacy in relationships. I know with social media, there are so many benefits that we have to social media, and this church completely embraces social media. So I'll say a few times throughout here, this is not that I'm anti-social media or anti-technology, but with these things come some unintended consequences is the reality. But I have always been all about technology and believing how it can help us. As a matter of fact, my wife and I, in the days before social media, had a blog. Fletcher 5 was our blog that we had. And then we used it again before there was this idea or presence of social media. We used it to communicate with my family. Now, I say we used it to communicate with my family, but the truth is that my wife used it to communicate with my family because I don't. And I wouldn't have thought that, but when I went back and actually started looking at the blog this week, there's actually a post on there that says, okay, I'm going to take this thing from Chris because she wants me to talk to you guys too. So anyway, hey, nothing has changed, although technology has. She's still the one that talks to my family for me. But no, this is a real place. As a matter of fact, I took a screenshot of it right here. Look at that family up there. They're so young and cute, and man, everybody looks so much better in that but me. But, you guys have heard me say that before. Women age like wine, men age like milk. We get chunky and grumpy and sour. And anyway, but so we had this blog. We used it to communicate with my family, mostly share stuff. This was somebody's birthday. I was kind of shared a post and pictures of what was going on. And, we've always like embraced this idea of making this big world even smaller. As a matter of fact, my youngest son actually got his name from this blog. This is where his name came from. If you go to the next slide here, I actually clipped this out. This was a conversation that we had in there. So we were talking about names, and my sister had actually said, hey, I like the name Aiden. So there'd be two Aidens if we would have taken that one, Aiden and Aiden. And Chris had said, well, I'm looking at Caden. And she's like, Caden and Aiden, that's cool. I like those. They rhyme. And he goes on to say, I knew this boy named Caden Riley, which is my son's name, and I always thought that went well together. Caden Riley Fletcher. And that's from my youngest sister, Jay. And then Chris puts underneath there, oh, I really like that, Caden. And that's actually where his name came from. That's where we got the name. Now, my sister later admitted to me she never knew a Caden Riley. She just liked the name, and so she wanted us to name our kid that. But anyway, so this is a silly little story about these benefits that we have of social media, of making this big world so much smaller. Even though they live miles and miles away, we were still able to communicate. However, there is a lot of unattended effects that social media has to us. If you do it too much, if you're consumed by it, if you spend too much time on it, if it becomes the reality of your life, then it begins to rob you of these values that God has for your life. It begins to change these values that you have as well too. As much as you feel like you have people all around you and you feel like you have friends, the reality of the social media is you might have all these friends, but yet then at the end of the day, you never really felt so alone because you don't have those people directly in your life. So as we talk about today, I want to talk about today's message with this idea, this context of the story, the scripture that we're going to read to start off with. And I'll give you a real quick backstory into the scripture and where it kind of starts off at. Jesus had just finished washing the disciples' feet. Now, if you can imagine that, here it is, Jesus, Son of God, perfect life, came here to be the Savior of the world and for us to live in eternity. He stopped for a second and took that servant leadership stand and went down and did the lowliest of low jobs and washed his disciples' feet. As he knelt down, he did this to show them love. So he did this act to show them love, and then that's where we pick up here in John 13, 34 and 35. It says, Jesus says to them, "This new commandment I give you, love one another as I have loved you. So you must love one another. By this, everybody will know that you are my disciples, if you love one another." What I love about the scripture is what Jesus said to us is you want people to know that you're my disciples, then what you got to do is love one another. I mean, I love what he said, but even more so, I love what he didn't say. He didn't say, if you want people to know that you're my disciples, then you need to have perfect theology. I mean, perfect theology is good, but that's not what Jesus told us. That's how people are going to know that we're his disciples. Or he didn't say, if you want people to know that you're my disciples, then you need to go to church. Again, agree, going to church is completely important, but that is not how we know that we are his disciples. People know that we are his disciples by loving one another. He didn't say if you go on there and make sure you like the scriptures that people post on Facebook, then people will know that you're my disciples, but it was by loving one another. They're going to know that we're his disciples by the way that we love one another and treat one another. So as we think about the scripture today, and we think about this idea of this, that our commandment is to show that we love one another, and that's what we've been called to do, what Jesus is called to do as followers of Jesus. I want to kind of look at this question of how technology is changing relationships. Because this technology that we have has changed some parts of our relationships with those unintended consequences that we might have. I mean, it helps in a lot of ways. We've talked about how this technology helps us spread words or make your family a little bit closer. There's a lot of good things, but in turn, it also has hurt us in some ways. So if you're taking notes, the first thing I have in there is the way that technology has kind of changed relationships is the term friend is evolving. This idea of a friend, or this term friend, has evolved through time with the idea of technology. It means something different. Now a friend can be someone that you've never even met, that you don't even know, that you don't live in the same town as, that you've never actually seen face to face, whereas that hasn't always been the case. This term friend is evolving. As a matter of fact, a study that was done last year had said that the average person has 338 Facebook friends. So an average person has 338 people on their Facebook. But if you ask those same people, well, how many real friends do you have, people that you talk to on a consistent and regular basis, most of them would say, I have 2 friends, 2 real friends that I talk to, that I communicate with. And even if we look at that same group, 25% of those people that they talk to had said that they actually have 0 friends that they talk to, 0 people that they consider a close friend that they talk to outside of that. So there's all this online intimacy and online communication and online activity, but yet there's very little personal intimacy that people are continuing to still have. We're living in these worlds where we have our friends somewhere else, but we're not having that personal interaction with people on a daily basis. So you could say that the term friend is evolving. The second thing we have is we're becoming addicted to this immediate affirmation. We're becoming addicted to an immediate affirmation. So if I'm feeling lonely, if I'm feeling like things aren't really going my way and I need a pick-me-up, I need a boost, I can get my phone out here and I can go to Instagram and I can take a little picture of me. There we go. Hey. All right. No, I can do better than that. Oh, hold on. Let me try another one. There we go. We got the fingers up. And I can put a little filter on that. Yeah, that makes me look a lot cooler. And I can share that immediately out. So now everybody's got to go to the Ignite Church TV Instagram page and like my picture, okay? But I can immediately share that out. And if I come back in a minute or 2 or 5 or 30 minutes later, I'm going to be able to see, oh, hey, this person liked it and this person liked it. And this person made a comment on it. What did they say? And what did they say about me? And they're going to be like, oh, Pastor Mike, your hair looks great today. Nobody's going to say that on there, right? Anyway, sorry, I was joking about that. But we get so used to this immediate feedback that we have from there. And what happens is we become addicted. We become chemically and physically addicted to this immediate feedback. See, when we get that feedback on social media, scientists will tell you it actually releases a chemical called dopamine in your brain. And your body craves that dopamine. And so as we continue to go back and look and say, well, what did they say? And how many people liked it? And did I get 100 likes? And did I get more than this person? And did my scripture get more likes than this other person's scripture or sunset picture or picture of food or whatever it is? And how come she never likes my pictures? I'm not going to like her pictures anymore because she doesn't ever like my pictures whenever they're on there. So what this does is this additive of dopamine gives us this like very short-term fix. This very short-term fix of euphoric feeling within our mind. But the fact is that it gives us a deferred longer-term need in our life. This term is actually called deferred loneliness. And what deferred loneliness is it's looking for immediate feedback to fill a void that's a lot bigger, that's a long-term thing. So in other words, we're kind of spending life looking for likes, and we're really longing for love within our own life. So technology has changed our relationships by different terms evolving, and we're becoming addicted to this immediate affirmation. And the third thing is we now have the power to do friendship on our own terms. We can do friendship on our own terms. Let's say Perry texts me. I have a choice in that situation. If he texts me, I can read his text. I can respond to his text. I can not respond to his text. I can not read his text. I can read his text and pretend like I never saw his text, whatever fits that situation, but I'm in control of that situation. I'm in control of this friendship. I'm in control of how I relate to that. If someone post a picture on Instagram, you now have the power to decide if they are worth a double tap or not, of you tapping and liking their picture. You can choose to do that, or you can choose to scroll past it. Or you might say, man, I am so tired of them posting pictures of their food. I don't like looking at them. I'm just going to unfollow them. I am in complete and total control of this friendship, of this relationship. I can say what I want. I can show them what I want. I can do what I want. I can reply when I want. I have control of this. If I don't want to respond, I'm not going to respond. And if I want to, I do. And suddenly, as we wake up and we look at all these things, these terms of friendship that we've been so used to for so long have kind of migrated and changed into something else. I really feel like we are more connected with more people than we have ever been before. But yet so many of us so much more alone than we have ever been before. Man, a lot of us know what we want, and we know where we want to be, and we have this idea, but we don't really understand, how do we get from here? How do we get from where we are now to where we need to be? And that's what I kind of want to talk about today, is how do we get from here, from this place where we've redefined friendship, where we've decided that friendship is on my terms and it fits them. But how do I get to a place where that longing for love that I've had for so long, how do we get there? As we start off today, I want to look at a couple of verses in Hebrews chapter 10, verse 24 and 25. It goes like this. It said, let us think of ways to motivate one another in acts of love and good works. Man, I think about that. Wouldn't it be awesome as if we got together as followers of Christ, if we just sat there and thought about ways, how do we motivate one another? How do we get each other going? Us, but also people outside of us. It goes on and says, let us not neglect commenting on one another's posts. No, it doesn't say that. It actually says, let us not neglect our meeting together. Let us not neglect meeting together as some people do, but encourage one another, especially now that the day of his return is drawing near. I think that that's just the beginning key of that. Some of us need to understand and realize and rediscover this power and of practice of meeting together. This idea, the power of being with other people has, of being with other followers of Christ has, as we meet together. Jesus said, whenever 2 or 3 or more are gathered in my name, I will be in the midst of them. And that is not to say that if you're alone, Jesus is not going to be with you. But man, the power of being in a group of people, the power of having multiple people with you, when you come together as followers of Jesus and you have this just real experience of Christ within that midst. So what I want to do today as we kind of round up our conversation with this today is I want to talk about 2 really extremely practical ideas that we can do to get from here to there. And these are going to be so practical that you're going to be kind of like, well, duh. I mean, I get that. It's pretty easy. But as so simple as they are, they're also extremely necessary. And I really believe that in today's culture, we've moved so far away from these 2 simple ideas. The first one is we need to be present. If we want to get from this idea of friendship that we are now to where we know that we need to be, we need to be present. I want to encourage you to be present with one another. In fact, if you want to, I've got a little game that we can play. You can play the repeat after me game. This is a promise that we're going to make as we're trying to get from here to there. It says, I will love people. A couple of you are playing. That's cool. I'll take it. I will love people face to face and not thumbs to thumbs. There you go. That's great advice right there. If we're trying to get from here to there, and it seems so simplistic, but we got to love people face to face and not thumbs to thumbs. Paul says this in Romans 12:9. It says, don't just pretend to love others, really love them. Hate what is wrong, hold tightly what is good, but love each other with genuine affection and take delight in honoring each other. When God's people are in need, be ready to help them. Man, love people. Really love them. Be present in their life. Let me give you an example of this. So let's say a friend or a family member or somebody, somebody that you're kind of close to, they just get some really bad news. Maybe medical, or they didn't get the job they wanted, the promotion they wanted. They didn't get into the school that they wanted to get into. Their girlfriend, their boyfriend, whatever, broke up with them. You kind of catch around. Somebody that something really bad just kind of happened to them and took them down. Now, what would be an acceptable way for us to show love in today's modern culture? Well, I think that probably what society would say is acceptable would be to text them. That's what commonly happens, right? You might text them, you might be like, hey, I'm praying for you, or I'm thinking about you, or whatever. Send them a text and just say, hey, you know what? I'm here for you. Just something simple like that. And I think that would be perfectly acceptable in today's culture, and we do that a whole lot. But we're followers of Christ, okay? So we're going to take this up a notch. So there's something else that you can do to take that up a little bit of a level. I'm going to tell you guys something that you might not even know that these do. These actually allow you to punch in a number and make voice-to-voice calls with somebody on the other side. Kids, you guys know because you FaceTime, so it's different. But anyway, joking aside, you could call them. That would take it up another level. What's going to happen when you call them? You're going to get to have that conversation, and you're going to get to hear their voice. And you're going to get to hear what they have to say. And whenever you're like, hey, man, how you doing? And they're like, I'm all right. And you're like, dude, you ain't all right. Come on, let's talk about this. Let's figure it out. Tell me what's going on. Tell me what's wrong. And have that actual physical conversation with them. It gives you that opportunity not just to pray for them, but it gives you that opportunity to pray with them in that time. So we can take it to that next place. Now, if you're going to get really, really crazy, you can take it up one more level even. We're not just going to text them. We're not just going to call them, but you could go see them. And you could go to their house. You could invite them out to lunch. You could invite them out to dinner. But you could go spend time with them, whatever. But being with them, gives you that opportunity to put your hands on their shoulder, to hug them if they're crying, to swat them in the rear if it's one of your guy buddies or whatever. Guys don't swat girl buddies in the rear. But anyway, gives you that opportunity to really be there with them. And that emotional connection that you can make one-on-one, being face-to-face with somebody. There's something so incredibly powerful about just the presence of being there with somebody, especially when they need something. When my mom had pancreatitis years ago, we went up to where she was living in northern Missouri and hung out up there, and I'd go to the hospital and see her, and my brothers and sisters are going to the hospital. My brothers and sisters, they're all cool people, but they're very entertaining people, let's talk about this, let's do this, I brought this for us to do. It's always busy, plan, go, da. And so I would go up to the hospital, and I am not the best at that stuff. I'm a lot better than I used to be, but I just deal with pain and hurt through humor, and so I'm just going to make jokes at your sad situations, and it's just me, and I try to be better, and I'm compassionate, and I do care, but it's just, again, years ago, I was a lot worse than I was. So I'd go up there with my mom, and I didn't know what to do, and so I'd just sit there sometimes. Not in silence, it was weird, we're just staring at each other, but, I might ask her a couple questions, how you feeling today? But I'd just sit there and maybe just sit next to her, and we'd watch a TV show or whatever. I'd sit up there for an hour or 2 hours and just hang out. And here my brothers and sisters are going and keeping her busy and entertained, and I would leave there just feeling like such a failure sometimes, I could have done this, or I should have said this, or I don't know what to do when I'm in that hospital and it's so drab and I don't know how to act at all. But anyway, fast forward a few months later, she's all better. She's out of the hospital. We're having a conversation. I might have even started the conversation by saying, man, I feel like such a failure whenever I'm sitting up there all the time. And I didn't say anything or do anything. And she told me, she's like, Mike, when you would come up there, it would mean so much more than anybody else. Because here I am, sick, not feeling good, and they're up there, and they're trying to entertain me and talk to me. And when you would come up there, all you were is you were just there. You were just there with me. And see, so me just being there was even better than the people that are trying to talk and entertain and keep her busy. And I don't know, she might have told my brothers and sisters that they were their favorite too. It's my story, don't take it away from me, okay? But no, in reality, see, I didn't realize that my presence alone in that situation was enough. And so many times, our presence alone, you don't have to have all the right words. You don't have to do all the right things. But in those moments with other people, your presence with those people alone is perfectly enough. Your presence of just being there. We didn't have phones that we could text and do whatever way back then in the story that I'm telling you. But I cannot imagine the most perfectly worded and placed text would have had any comparison to just sitting in that room, not saying a word. Just sitting there, being there with that person. See, God is a relational God. He created us to love Him, and He created us to love one another as well. And we can love each other from a distance. We can love each other with technology, but we can do so much more when we're face to face, when we're in that presence with other people. So I'm not sure what this means to you. As we talk about this, you may have some ideas in your head, or maybe I've got a couple I can kind of throw your way. Maybe this means that you're supposed to just invite somebody to lunch this week that you normally would just check on, maybe with a text. Hey, bud, how you doing? Maybe you're supposed to actually go meet with that person just to hang out with them. Just to sit there face to face with them and have that time. Maybe you'll do something completely crazy this week. We live in this gated, walled community anymore. That's just how our society has become. It's just gated and walled, and we seclude ourselves off. And this is never more evident and apparent to me than whenever I'm at the grocery store with my kids, and we're walking along, and I see somebody, and I'm like, hey, how you doing? And they're like, okay. And we talk for 2 or 3 minutes. We walk away, and they're like, who was that, Dad? And I'm like, I don't know who that was. It's just a person. They're like, why in the world would you talk to them then? And I'm like, they're a human being. It's okay. We can talk to other people. So maybe what you're supposed to do is absolutely crazy this week and go out of your comfort zone and invite somebody over to your house for dinner. Like to come, not somebody you meet at Walmart, please. That's going to get you killed or something. But I mean somebody that you actually know. But you invite them to your house and you're going to cook dinner for them, or you're going to order dinner in if you don't know how to cook, or I don't know what that looks like for you, but maybe that's kind of where you should go. Or maybe your challenge this week is to show up to Connect Group. Perry talked about that earlier, how we've got Connect Group where we hang out, and you might be thinking, man, I don't know what goes on there, and I don't fit in, or I don't know those people, or what. You know what? I had all those same questions. Every one of them whenever we started going to Connect. I don't want to go to those people's house. Why does it have to be at people's house? How come we can't just see them on Sunday? That's enough for me, So I get all those questions that you have. But whatever it is, there's some of us that are just longing for the spiritual connection so much. We're praying to God all the time to make this big impact in my life and take me to that next step, God. When what we're really missing is just this joy and blessing of Christian community with other people, whether it's one person. And we're not present with people. We're secluding ourselves. We're praying for God to fix something whenever all God's saying is, man, just go hang out with other people. It seems easier because when you start having relationships with people, it gets messy and it gets weird. I know that. But I promise you, the reward that you get from that is so worth the risk in those situations. So I'm not sure how you're going to apply that to yourself this week, but man, I'm just praying that if God is speaking to you to begin to be there and to make personal connections with people, that those connections will be present for you within this week. So the first thing is we have to be present. And the second thing is we have to be engaged. Don't just be physically present to what's going on, but we have to be emotionally engaged with what is going on as well. Peter said it like this. He said, most important of all, continue to show deep love for each other. A deep spiritual engagement where the person that you are in the room is the most important person that is there. So we can be present, and that's important, but all too often, it's more, I know you guys have seen this. You guys go out to lunch sometimes, or maybe today when you go out, kind of look around, and you're going to see a family of 4 or 5 people, and they're all going to be sitting at the dinner table at lunch somewhere, and they're all going to be doing this. Well, the adults are going to be doing this, and the kids are going to be doing this. Right? So, but it's interesting. Like yesterday, we actually went to breakfast yesterday with the Lighties, and we do often after prayer. We'll get together and go out to breakfast. And at one point, I actually looked around the table. I took a picture of it, but I didn't put it up here because I didn't want to embarrass anybody. But I do have a picture of it. Anyway, but I looked around the table, and I looked, and because I knew what we were going to talk about today, and everybody is pretty much on their devices, They're just sitting there, and they're just staring at them. And I'm like, man, here are all these people that we love, and we're face to face right now, but yet we're not really engaged. We're not really emotionally invested with what is going on at this restaurant. See, I was going to put the picture up with a little statement that Michael Lackey sent me a while ago that said, warning, I'm a pastor. Anything you do, can, and say will be used against you in a message series. So anyway, but I didn't. I need to get a shirt like that or something. Anyway. But it's interesting to me. So like my kids, they'll have friends over to the house, and they're like, man, Dad, we want to watch a movie. We want to have people over, come on. And I'm like, okay, cool. We need popcorn. We need a movie. We need this. And we get them. And I go down through there, and their movie's playing, and they're all 4 just sitting on their phone, or 5, or how many. And nobody's watching the screen. Nobody is watching what's going on. They're watching there. Or, we can make fun of kids and say that they do it, but parents, you've done it too. I promise you, Dad, Mom, Mommy, Mama. And you're like, oh my gosh. And you're busy, you're just like on Pinterest or whatever, looking for something. You're like, leave me alone, kid. But we do that so often, like we take everything that's in our life, and we just these things that are right in front of us, but yet that's not the most important thing to us. What's important to us is what's going on here. What somebody said about me, or this comment that we have to have. Think about this in real life. Like if this were to happen. Let's say, you and I, we go to dinner, and we're sitting there eating dinner, and you're talking to me about something, and I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden I just bring out my book, and I'm just like, yeah, keep talking, go ahead, yeah. And you'd be like, what? And No, continue on. This is a good part of my book. I didn't want to miss it. So anyway, so I'm reading, and then all of a sudden I'm like, yeah, okay, continue. And so you continue to talk to me, and then all of a sudden I just get up and I walk over here and I'm like, hey man, how you doing? I didn't see you at church this week. Oh man, I hope to see you next week. And you're still sitting, you're like, who is this idiot and what is he? This is my time right here. But so often, this is what we do. We're face to face with somebody. We have this opportunity to connect with somebody. But who really matters the whole time is whatever's going on here. This is what matters to us. Be engaged. Here's the problem. Every time this thing buzzes, whistles, tweets, tings, rings, whatever it is, we feel like, man, there's something that we're missing out on. There's something going on that I don't know about. This idea that there's this feeling that is created within us. There's actually a word that has been created to describe this feeling specifically, and the word is called FOMO. I'd never heard of it either, but I'm going to put it on the screen. I actually got this out of the dictionary because I wanted to prove to you that this is a real word. But there's this word FOMO, which means fear of missing out. And the definition of it is actually a feeling of anxiety or insecurity over the possibility of missing out on something, an event, or an opportunity. So there's this whole generation right now, and by this, I'm not just talking about the millennials or these kids or whatever it is, but we are that generation from my age down, these people that have this idea of FOMO, this idea of, man, I can't miss that next funny cat picture that's going to be posted. I got to be the first one there to like it. I got to make sure I see that TikTok because all my friends are going to be talking about it, and I got to learn this TikTok dance thing or whatever. This idea that we're going to miss out. We're not going to be a part of what's going on. I can't miss somebody's commenting on my picture. I got to know what they said. I got to know how many people did, and we're constantly just looking for that feedback over and over. And listen to me, at the end of your life, it is not going to matter that you got 97 likes instead of 100, that you didn't get the number of followers that you needed on Twitter, but it's going to be about how much love that you've shown. They're all going to know that you're my disciples by how you love other people. We have this fear of missing out. But that whole time, we are missing out. We're missing out on the person that's right in front of us. We're missing out on that person that we're face to face with. And those people that really matter the most. Now, I've said this a lot of times, and I'm going to continue to say it throughout the series. I am not anti-technology. I am not anti-cell phone. I am not anti-social media at all. I know it kind of sounds like that, but I just am watching this continue to deteriorate within this world, and we're missing out on the people that are straight in front of us. So I'm not sure how this applies to your life, if it just means that when you go to dinner, you make sure that your phone stays in your pocket. Or I've heard of stories where people go out as a group of friends and they all put their phone in the middle, and whoever touches it first has to pay for the whole bill, That'll keep you from touching your phone right there. Maybe it's, at Connect Group, you're going to tell yourself, I'm going to put my phone away at Connect Group and I'm really going to interact with other people. And I'll just check it one time to see if there's an emergency. And Harry Styles releasing a new song is not an emergency that you can stop things for. So, but whatever that looks like for you, just realizing these issues that these phones or social media have created with connecting and really developing interpersonal relationships with other people. Let's look at 1 John 3:18. It says, "Dear children, let us not merely say that we love each other, but let us show the truth by our actions." Man, don't just pray for people. Pray with people. Be there to where you can pray with them. Don't just like what they post, but like who they are. Spend that time personally, get involved with their lives. This was one of the greatest weapons of the early church. And they would get together and they would meet on a regular basis. They would meet outside of Sunday mornings. They would make sure that everybody's need were filled. They had that radical love for each other and everybody within their community. If anybody had a need, then they would meet the need. If they couldn't meet the need, they would sell their own possessions to meet that need. And the fact the Bible actually says that they were so generous, there were no needy among them. And then the skeptical world on the outside looked in and said, man, I want some of that. What is going on in that place over there? That they're meeting everybody's needs. It's because they loved each other. And they cared for each other. And they understood what Jesus said whenever he said, they will know that you are my disciple by the way that you love one another. They're not going to know that you're his disciple by how many followers you have or how fast you comment on a post or how many likes you get or whatever it is, but they'll know and sense that you're his disciple when you get involved in their lives, when you open up your heart. And then that gives you the opportunity when they're like, man, what's going on? I want what you have. You can say, I'm on this mission. I'm on this mission that God has put me on because he came to this earth and he gave me eternity and he just told me all I got to do is love. And I'm on this mission and it has radically changed my life. Man, the reason that I love this conversation that we're having today isn't just because I'm just tired of watching other people stare at their screens while people in front of them are getting ignored. But it's because I'm tired of realizing that I'm that person sometimes. I get up sometimes and I get up for a dinner or a conversation and I think, I wasn't engaged in that at all. I just spent that whole time, man, I feel horrible about that when that happens. I don't want to live my life just longing for likes anymore. But I'm longing for love. I'm longing to love other people. I'm longing to be there. I'm longing to be relational with them. Man, I'll still use technology. I'm still going to use it. It's such a powerful tool to let us reach so many people, make this big world smaller, reach people with the church, talk to people about just my own, likes and needs and maybe gripes sometimes. But when God showed his love for us, and he just didn't shout it from heaven, he just didn't say it from a distance, but he sent his son, Jesus, to this earth to live with us, a part of him, to live a perfect life and show us how to live and be that example. And if our purpose is to know him and to make him known, I think there's no better way to do that than to look at what he said, as he was said, for as I loved you, you love one another, and everybody will know that you're my disciple. And pray with you guys as we close out today. Man, Jesus, I love you so much. I just thank you so much that your presence is here with us today, Lord. I just know I can just feel you within this place today as you're speaking to us, as your Spirit is here today speaking to us about this idea of this disengagement that we have with other human beings, this disengagement that we have with other people. And Lord, I just pray that wherever we fall, maybe we fall in both categories, that we need to be more present in situations, or we need to be more engaged, that you will be with us to just stop us and be that mind in that says, hey man, you know what? Put up your phone right now. Have a conversation with somebody in front of you, or stop playing with us right now. Really be engaged with what is going on, Lord. I know that you can do that. I know that we are trying so hard to get to this place that we know that we want to be at, this place where we don't have emptiness, where we don't have loneliness. And the way to get there is so simple, is to be present and be engaged. And Lord, I know that you can present us with those opportunities. And I pray for any person within here today that is struggling with that loneliness, that is struggling, feeling like they're all by themselves. And just pray that you would just give them the courage to just step forward and go meet somebody for lunch, or show up to Connect Group, or whatever it is that you're calling them to do, Lord. I pray for that strength and that courage for each person in here this week, that they would just go and follow a different path and show that they truly are your disciples, because they are going to love other people just as you loved us first. Lord, I pray all this in your glorious name. Amen.